Clarity changes everything. Have you ever convinced yourself that it's simply too late to change? Hi, I'm Coach B, tapping in. Clarity changes everything. I have a smile on my face today. Today is 35 years of recovery. Let's give it up. Yes, yes, yes. I'm celebrating 35 years of recovery. But let's talk about change is possible. Listen, I lived with addiction for 14 years. My addiction started when I was at the age of 14, and it ended at the age of 28. Y'all do the math. I'm not counting everything up for you. Listen, I lived with self doubt. I lived with undiscernible fear, dread. I've lived with loneliness that was unimaginable. And I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. In my addiction, I had birthed some children. And I don't want to mention their names just due to privacy and all of that good stuff. And because of my addiction, my children were taken away and I lost my parental rights. So when I talk about undiscernible fear, the dread, the loneliness, the emptiness, longing for my children, wanting my children, and battling addiction at the same time. If you've been in that space or place, put a heart in the comments because I know that I'm not alone. I live with the anger, the resentment, the regret for the missed opportunities that I didn't have. Like, I didn't get a chance to see my children grow up. I didn't get a chance to participate in most of their lives. And the reason why I say most of their lives is because in my addiction, it wasn't feasible, it wasn't possible. Addiction will rob you of everything. And I don't want to go too deep into that because we are on YouTube, right? And they have restrictions. So I'm just going to give you the clean version. So I had anger, I had resentment, I had anger with the world, I had resentment about everything in my life. I just knew that life was unfair. Life had treated me bad. And some of the reasoning for that is because I too grew up in foster care. I had come from a family of people who I can say, which I know clinically today, who suffered from addiction as well. So when I tell you I'm celebrating 35 years today, what I'm doing is breaking the cycle. I'm breaking the cycle of addiction in my family line. Um, I had anger, I had resentments, I had regrets, like I said, for the missed opportunities, not being able to be there for my children. I had some remorse, some guilt and shame, some guilt and shame for the harm that I caused others and myself. I caused my children a lot of pain, mental, emotional um, harm. I wasn't there. They were looking for their mother. They needed their mother, and I wasn't there. So I caused them mental and emotional harm. Um, and to myself, right? Addiction is not an easy lifestyle. I had undergone some things through my addiction. Like I said, I'm not going to be explicit about it because YouTube has guidelines and things of that nature. But Yeah, it wasn't an easy battle. I was doing a lot of things that I wasn't proud of, things that made me look at myself differently, to say the least. But eventually, what happened was I hit a bottom, and I got help. I wanted help. I needed help, and I couldn't face another day in desperation. Like, I had lost so much. And when I say I lost so much, I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about losing my identity, losing my purpose, losing my dreams, my aspiration. I was living in despair. I was hopeless. I didn't know which way to go, what to do, where to turn. And I cried a lot, a many a nights. I was out there doing things and I was crying, God, get me out of this. Take this pain off of me. And, this is my story that I'm sharing with you. And I truly believe that He heard my cries, He heard my prayers. And when worse got worser, I was able to get some help. I wanted the help. I needed the help. I was tired. I was worn out, and I was tired of the lifestyle. And I was able to get help. And the first way that I got help was through counseling. I was able to go to an outpatient program and get counseling. And what was so amazing about the counseling was I hadn't even realized that I had used substances for so long. Like I said, I started when I was 14. It ended when I was 28. So I had used for most of my adolescence and my early adulthood. And I got counseling and they asked me a question, when did I start using? Why do I want to stop? Those type of questions were really important. And I hadn't realized because it started out as fun. I was socializing, recreational using, and that stuff, it has a payoff. And it turned from one thing to another. It turned from I was having fun to I needed it to function. And 14 years of my life just disappeared. And as I said, in between that 14 years, I had some children and I lost my parental rights. Um, what the counseling did was help me to understand what addiction was, what substance use disorder was, because I didn't know. I thought I was just, having fun. I was just hanging out. I didn't know anything about cravings and withdrawals. I didn't know about the psychological cravings. I didn't know about the biological withdrawals. The only thing I knew was I needed to have it. So I learned so much about that. But counseling also did something else. It helped me take a look at how did I get there. And like I said, I'm not going to be that explicit. What happened in my life that got me there in the first place. And I was able to examine some of that. And ideally, what happened, because counseling is only an hour a week. You might do some group counseling for an hour and a half, but I would need support for the rest of the other hours of those days and for the rest of the week. And they suggested, go to a 12-step program. And I can't endorse no program. Again, I'm just telling you my story a little bit, right? So I did eventually go to a 12-step program, and I found out a lot of things about myself. I'm laughing, and it's bad for you because you don't know what I'm laughing at. But I'm gonna try to share it with you. I did not realize how much pain I was carrying internally. I didn't realize that. I didn't know. People used to tell me you got a chip on your shoulder, and I didn't think nothing of it because in my mind I didn't ask to come here anyway. And the stuff that was going on in my life, why wouldn't I have a chip on my shoulder? But the 12 step program also helped me to realize that I had some assets, and so did counseling. I don't want to say that that didn't, but the 12 step program actually helped me to find out that I had some assets, that, that change was possible, that I could actually turn my life around for the better. You know, it gave me a spiritual foundation. I had something to call my own. I had some place to go that I fit in. And the reason why I fit in, because they didn't really care about all, like, what color I was, what my gender was, what my preference was. They didn't care about all of that stuff. They just cared about, hey, you got a problem, and how could we help you? And that was so cool, because for most of my life I didn't fit in for one reason or another. Either I was black, I was a woman, or, or excuse me, I was a part of the LGBT community. So, but my mama would say I had three strikes against me. So I really didn't fit into a lot of places. And so when I got to a 12 step program, they didn't care about all of that stuff. They was like, hey, you in pain. Pain shared is pain lesson. Let's see if we can help you out a little bit, right? And let me say, after the beginning of counseling and getting my foot wet and my foundation in a 12 step program, I actually got a mentor. And my mentor saw potential in me. My mentor is like, oh, you're smart, you're bright, you have something that you can give back to the community. Up until that point, I hadn't thought that much about myself. And to be honest, most of the people I was around, they didn't see my potential. They saw those three strikes that I was talking about, but they didn't really see my potential. So my mentor was like, listen, you need to go to school. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school. And I had my GED, and I was able to go to college and get a bachelor's in professional studies, human services. And boy, did that open my eyes a lot to what growth and development, what we think is the standard rate of growth and development versus what actually happens in people's life, or how addiction can actually impede the normal process of growth and development. And when I talk about impeding the normal process, I'm talking about impeding the process of emotional intelligence, maturity, um, relationships, what we call being able to interact with other people. So, yeah, that helped me understand a great deal of things. So that was cool. I had that under my belt. And as I was going to school, I wanted to give something back, because I had learned so much through counseling and through the 12 step program. And now, academically, with my degree, I wanted to give something back. And that actually helped me get into counseling. So I was able to use my degree. I became certified as a certified addiction substance abuse counselor. And I was able to work in the counseling industry dealing with substance use disorders. I had firsthand experience. Now I had the education, and and now I was going to get the work related experience. And that set me up for something wonderful, because now I understood it academically, I understood it personally, and now I understood it in my work environment. And that was my career for a very, very long time. You know, and as I moved on, because like I said, I'm celebrating 35 years today, so I'm trying to give you a long story in a short period of time. But I wanted to lay the foundation down a little bit, right? So I continue to stay in the 12 step meetings. The counseling, laid my foundation for the first 4 or 5 years. And then I maintain things through 12-step programs because you can go on your own. And periodically, when I needed to return to counseling because something happened in my life and I felt like I needed to take a deeper dive into something, I would return to counseling. So I would have a combination of spirituality, 12-step programs, and counseling at different points in my life. If I needed counseling, I would return back to it. And then something miraculous happened. I started understanding that there was a difference between living in the past and living in the present. And I think it was 2018, I'm not sure, but no, 2014, I was introduced to something called recovery coaching. And recovery coaching set me up to work with people who had a substance use disorder but wanted to deal with their life in a different way. Instead of looking at like from a clinical aspect, their pathologies, like what happened, what's wrong, this and that and the other. They wanted to look at what was possible for people to move forward in their lives. And because that resonated so much with me, I then went into the field of coaching in general. I moved towards coaching more specifically into life coaching because I didn't just want to deal with the addiction, I wanted to deal with the whole person. But in order for me to coach people, I needed to get coached. So I spent a few years and still get coaching to this day, still get coaching to this day. But the first few years were more focused on me. Like, what did I want to create for myself? What changes did I want to have in my life in all areas of my life, in all areas of my life, and it expanded my life to my wildest dreams. And so I say that to say this: change is possible. It is possible. I'm telling you, I went from 14 years of addiction, living a life that was super duper dangerous on all levels, to getting help and having my life ultimately changed around. Let me backtrack one too. Um, After I got my bachelor's and after I became certified as a credential alcoholism substance abuse counselor, which we call a KSAT, I got my master's in public administration and affairs. And that was cool because it taught me about the business side of the world and a lot about how we grow and develop in the workforce. So one degree helped me understand how people grow and develop personally, and the other degree helped me understand how people grow and develop in the workforce. But in 2014, I fell in love with coaching because it brought another aspect to my life. I love counseling. I fell in love with coaching because coaching is solution based. Coaching is about the here and now. Coaching is about creating a future so we don't have a defaulted future, meaning that we don't have to keep making the same old mistakes that we do. We do. We have the possibility to create something wonderful in our lives. So before I end this, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I want to say happy 47th birthday to my firstborn. She know who she is. CS, that's all I'm going to say. Happy birthday to CS. She's, you know, in Mexico right now on her way back home. But happy birthday to you. Thank you for being a wonderful part of my life. And if you heard the earlier part of what I said I lost my rights. And I told you that God entered my life at some point, and God said, guess what? That is not the final answer. I'm going to give you an opportunity when those kids get old enough for you to rekindle those relationships so that you don't have to deal with the guilt and the shame, the remorse, and the regrets. That you could take that off of your shoulders and live in the here and now and concentrate, focus on what do you want to create with your children. I'm not going to sit up here and lie and tell you it's all rainbows because it's not. It's work. And when I tell you it's work, it's internal work, it's emotional, it's mental work, it's commitment, it's about showing up. So those things, for some, not all, have changed in my life as well. So you might say, what's going on with you? Today is 35 years. I can't believe it. 35 years. Listen, they counted me out when I was 6 years old. How about that? They counted me out when I was 6 years old. You got to understand what I was up against. And I'm here. I'm here to tell you that it's never too late to change. Anything that you want to create in your life, anything that you want to build, anything that you want to repair, it is never too late. Change is possible. I'm not going to sit up here and say 35 years was a rainbow, it was easy. No, I had to resolve all of those issues I told you about, the self-doubt, the loneliness, the regret, the guilt, the shame, all of that. I had to do the internal work to set myself free. Imagine that load. Imagine that load. The dread, the self-doubt, the lack of confidence, the loneliness, the emptiness. Feeling like you got to do it by yourself. It's a struggle. Imagine being able to let all of that go and putting yourself in the care of a support group, having people in your life that care about you, that want to be with you through the ups and the downs. And guess what? No matter what you say to them, they not shocked and they ain't judging. Why? Because they understand. Because they've lived life too. And I just want to say, yo, this is Coach B. This is Coach B, man. Coach B, the CEO, co-creator of Extraordinary Outcomes. The one I had to create for first was me. I had to create extraordinary outcomes in my life with the support of sponsorship, counseling, coaching, spirituality, quiet, peace, solitude. So when I say I'm Coach B, the CEO, co-creator of Extraordinary Outcomes, what I'm saying is, listen, if you want to have clarity, counterbalance, and freedom, listen, connect with me. I've been through some things. I understand some things. And I can tell you, I'm not focusing on the past because the past is the past. I'm focusing on the here and now. Listen, I got you. I understand. Now let's take those trials and turn them into tribulation. What do you want to create today? Because you're not your past. I'm not my past. You're not your past. What do you want to create today? Listen, this has been Coach B. Thank you for helping me celebrate 35 years today. It's been an honor and a privilege. And if this resonated with you, leave a 1 in the comments, leave a heart in the comments, and share this with a leader who is ready to own what's next. Again, I'm Coach B, the CEO, co-creator of Extraordinary Outcomes. Clarity, counterbalance, and freedom. That's how you own what's next. See you next